Hello, podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to SportsSkope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 21st day of September. So I just read that that this is technically the last day of summer. I mean, it's really unofficially for most people here in America. It's Labor Day weekend. But as far as, the winter scholastic and the fall change of seasons this is the last day of summer. I'm enjoying it, everybody. As you can see, I'm starting a little bit early tonight. We're supposed to have a lot of rain here later on this afternoon today and into the evening, which usually slows me down on my day job. Thank God it held out and I got home a little early. As I tell you guys, I always check 15 minutes, and I'm a little bit earlier than normal. But check on your watch 15 minutes, a quarter till 9. Sometimes even as early as 20 minutes till 9 p.m. Central Time, I'll start SportsSkope because I simply like to get the show done as soon as possible. If I could do it at 7 p.m. Central Time or 5 p.m. Central Time on your drive home, I would definitely do that. Hopefully, I'll have enough one day where I have my website going and everything, and we'll be able to do the show at that time. I'm going to talk about a lot of great games on last weekend, guys. A lot of great games on from the afternoon games, the 3:30 Central games in the NFL. Really, really good games. Classics. It was the best I've ever seen, other than one game. The Tampa game was kind of, a little bit of a blowout there. But the other three were nail-biters. Dallas and the LA Chargers, nail-biter. Arizona, one field goal. Arizona, Minnesota. Tennessee down 15 points at Seattle. I'll get into that a little bit. But first, in life and really in the NFL, things just kind of even out. When I talk about the NFL, and I do the predictions and look at the schedules in the summertime, I always say this game, that game, and this game, they'll lose one of these games. Or I used to point out one particular game, I know they'll lose this game. But usually what happens is they'll beat somebody they shouldn't beat, and then they'll lose to somebody they shouldn't lose to, right? For instance, in week 1, I was so for certain with 3 new offensive linemen and that upgraded defense in just about every single position for the Cleveland Browns. I was so sure, I even bet money on it, that the Cleveland Browns would beat Kansas City in week 1. And of course they don't, but week 2, Kansas City goes to a banged up Baltimore team. They go in there half-stepping, a little bit flat, and then they lose. I was so sure Buffalo, at home, upgraded pass rush, got players back, had a good draft. Rossanu from Miami at the defensive line. MVP candidate Josh Allen would certainly beat a whole makeshift offensive line Pittsburgh team at home. They lost. And I was for sure the next week that Pittsburgh would beat Oakland or the Raiders, right? And it kind of evened out, though. I thought maybe Pittsburgh would be 1-1 after 2 weeks. And so that kind of evened out. Same thing with Tennessee. I thought Tennessee for certain, all those offensive upgrades. You got an Arizona team coming east. Early start time. Best running game in the NFL. 2,000-yard rusher against Arizona. They lose to Arizona. Then I thought in week 2, there's no way they're going to go up to Seattle. Pete Carroll's never lost an opening day game in Seattle with Russell Wilson. I want to say he's never lost one, period. The 12th man, Bobby Wagner. The team looks like they got 15 players out there. The offense can't hear that. It was the loudest stadium again. So much happiness. And, of course, they go up there and beat them. So everything has a way of evening itself out. you know, and that's how it is in life. You take a test, you think this particular test before the midterm is going to be the roughest one. And then the one right after the midterm itself is going to be a rough. But so I've got the finals are going to be, so you mess up on the midterm, but you ace the finals and you get past the class. It has a way of evening itself out if you work hard, do the right thing. That's how it is in life. It kind of evens itself out. And that's the way I see a lot of from week 1 in the NFL to the week 2 in the NFL. But now I'll have to start off with the game that people were talking about, Sunday Night Football, that just really, I knew, Pickles, what the national analysts would say. Now, mind you, I didn't watch a lot of the games. I got the box score. I didn't watch a lot of the Kansas City Baltimore. Usually, folks, by the time 7:30, 7:25 Central Time comes up on Sunday night, I'm emotionally and physically shot. I'm completely shot. I have to watch something non-sports. It's usually something else I've recorded. Took a shower. I'm just chill mode. An old TV show that I'm trying to catch them on, like Billions per se. It comes on Showtime. I'm the Muhammad Ali, a little bit of documentary. But this particular week, I was watching the rest of the 86 Mets, Keith Hernandez, all that stuff. Really good mentor there for the other guys as far as baseball is concerned. But I wasn't watching. I went back and forth on the Kansas City game because I didn't have any fantasy plays. I didn't bet it per se. But I was pretty sure that the Chiefs would win. And I found out that Lamar made a play towards the end, had a good jump pass there. And, I heard the media analysts, the sports media, just so hyperbolic. Kind of like Colin Cowherd says that it's not as bad as the political. They're just as bad and even worse. That you're ready to make Lamar Jackson the second coming of the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I looked at his box score. I saw the highlights at first, Pickles, and that's a pretty good, nice little jump pass there. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Tim Tebow per se, and maybe a little bit of Michael Vick. So I looked at it and I'm thinking, okay, Kansas City gets up early. Okay, first of all, Kansas City, they escaped week 1. They escaped. I mean, they were down 3.5 quarters to Cleveland, team I picked to go pretty far this year, and they come back late. Patrick Mahomes throws a few passes out of his rear end, and the punter drops a kick, thinks he's fast enough to run for a 15-yard first down, which he couldn't. And they obviously they lose the game. Baker Mayfield makes an awful pass. Okay. And then they go on the road and they are fully aware that that Baltimore played Monday night, late overtime Monday night. They lost Ronnie Stanley, their left tackle, in that game. They already were down Marcus Peters, their second best corner, on that game. They were 2 running backs injured in that particular game coming in. They were coming. They played late. So the Chiefs, and these players say they don't watch this. They do watch this stuff. They do watch what people like me and them bigger platforms, obviously, than mine. And they got up. They got up, I want to say, 35-24 in the second quarter. And like a lot, it happens more in college than it does in the pros. They mentally checked out. Mahomes threw a costly interception that led. And, of course, later on in the game, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a costly fumble and the Ravens, like my dad will say, the wounded animal syndrome. They come back and win the game. And now Lamar Jackson, well, I'm looking at his stat line. Yes, he had one touchdown throwing, 239 yards passing. He ran for 2 more, and he ran for 107 yards. He also had 2 interceptions in that game, and he was sacked once. And now guys like all your big media people, your Mike Greenbergs, your Colin, they said pay the guy this big money. Even Jason Whitlock, who really threw me off, he said pay him more than Patrick Mahomes. And mind you, they do have a lot of injuries. If you pay Lamar Jackson more than Patrick Mahomes is going to make, and Mahomes' contract, by the way, has not kicked in. You think that was bad then? Because of the injuries they have? They're not even in that game because they can't afford the cornerbacks that they do have. They can't afford the pass rushers that they do have. So that wouldn't even been close. They would have been 0-2, and those games wouldn't have been watchable. If you're paying a guy like Lamar Jackson $40+ million a year. So what other situation come about this? It's a primetime game, a guy very fast on his feet, very much electric, can run like the wind blows, Pickles, got a little bit of a passing game, and he has a huge stat game. A huge stat game. And everybody goes crazy and says, give him the money, and the team decides to give him the money. I don't know. Perhaps, maybe the 2011 Philadelphia Eagles. Excuse me, I think it was the 2010. Excuse me, 2010 Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night. Michael Vick comes back. He plays against Washington. He had a 47-point fantasy night that night. I had him. Won the game. My dad was going against him. He lost the game by 1 point. This is Michael Vick's stat line. 4 touchdowns, 150.7 quarterback rating. Not quite. Lamar's was not quite that high. And he ran for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had 6 touchdowns against a lesser Washington team. Of course, I get that. So I look at what they did that year. They won 10 games and lost their playoff game. They lost a home game to Green Bay Packers. So the Eagles, this is Michael Vick, post-dog fighting, gets out of prison. It's a great story. It's a great story. So what happens that you give Michael Vick the $100 million and a LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, all those guys, and that great team. They got to the playoffs that year and lost in the first round. So they give him that money that offseason. They went 8-8 the next year. They never even got to a divisional round that I know of. I know they didn't get to an NFC championship game. And they certainly did not get to a Super Bowl. But you see flash on TV, a lot of running around, a lot of amazing play. But does it actually lead to wins? Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson, that's his second comeback win. You say, well, it's against Patrick. But, yeah, it was against a team who, like I've said on this program before, that you've got teams, they have went to AFC Championship game 1 year, 3 years ago. They went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They went to the Super Bowl last year. They had the 1 seed. As I indicated on this show, they are a target like nobody's business. And they simply lost focus in this game. It's human nature. The Kansas City Chiefs, they lost focus in this game, and then they got beat. Okay? Teams do not get the 1 seed 2 years in a row, not named New England. It don't happen. I've seen it. It's very rare to happen. Teams have never been back to the Super Bowl, and other than New England, after losing the Super Bowl since this salary cap was implemented in 1994. So, yes, and you have a wounded Baltimore Raven team. And this guy throws 2 interceptions. He makes a couple, dazzling plays. You have just an awful fumble there by Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and it looks like nobody even put the helmet on the ball. Carelessness, and then they win, and so then you have this massive overreaction. I want paying this guy that kind of money, and when you do that, you're not going. Well, you may make the playoffs. You're not going to get to the divisional round. I'll say that. The way he runs, that reckless style. Now, the guy works hard. It's nothing personal. He's a great, air quote, football player. He's a great gadget player. But he's not a Patrick Mahomes. He's never going to be a Patrick Mahomes. He's not even a Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray right now is my MVP. I know you guys say, what about Tom Brady? He's got 9 touchdowns in 2 games. Kyler Murray don't have the complete foundation of coaching, nor offense, nor defensive coordinator, for that matter, that Brady has. Okay? Everything else is close. I don't think he has the traditional running game that Brady has. Coaching is huge in this league, guys. Time management, penalties, and by the time I get done with this program, you're going to find that out. But Lamar Jackson, I know they're going to do it. And when they do, I'm going to be the first to tell you. And you know what? If the guy goes on and wins the Super Bowl, if anybody can pull it out, the Ravens can financially. They can pull it out. They're really good drafted. They're really good with the cap. They can pull this off. But I'm not going for that, man. I am just not going for that. Okay, in other games played, and here's another I told you so. Okay. Pittsburgh plays the team that beat the Ravens, the Oakland Raiders. And I said this on Thursday's program, and I listened to the soundbite. Pittsburgh hosting a team that they should beat decisively. But I'm always worried about teams playing down to their competition. And here's what I said on Thursday's SportsSkope about Mike Tomlin. Money easy taken for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are at home. The Raiders played overtime. Monday night, the Raiders have an offensive lineman, Denzel Good. He's on the IR. But this is the big knock on Mike Tomlin, okay? The big knock on Mike Tomlin is the team knows this, okay? And they play down to their competition. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't flat out lose this game or have to hang on for dear life at the very end, losing this game. Now, this Raiders team, their defensive line has improved, but that's the knock on him. That is a knock on him. And plus Ben Roethlisberger, he's already banged up for this game. And on top of that, T.J. Watt's got a growing injury. Joe Hayden got injured in that game. Devin Bush, the linebacker, got injured. But they had underwhelming players to replace Pouncey. On a bright note, Najee Harris did have a screen pass for a touchdown. So they're learning to use the running backs. They're using a screen game. They're running the football. That's a positive. On the flip side, Now everybody's going crazy about the Raiders and Derek Carr. They're saying he's an MVP candidate. Slow down again. This Raider team, the last 2 years, have started off 2-0. If you remember last year, they decisively beat the Saints at home. I mean, that Saint team that beat the eventual Super Bowl champs, the Tampa Bay Bucks last year, 38-3 in one game, and their defensive line got ran over and manhandled by the Raiders on a Monday night game. Now, that was in Vegas. I get it. And we thought that they were going to be great, only to lose 6 of their last 10 in December of 2019, and then last year, 5 of their last 9. You could say it's Gruden, rah-rah stuff wears teams down, and they lose emotional energy towards the end of the season. They got blown out by Atlanta last year. We know how good they are, right? Or you could say it's just a lack of depth on defense. You can't win the shootouts when the weather changes. It's probably a combination of all that stuff. But until they prove that, and this team may be different, their defensive line is better. They did get a few sacks and an interception against Ben Roethlisberger. But now we're not sure if Derek Carr is even going to play Sunday against the Miami Dolphins, who got blown out 35-0 last week. There's a lot of what ifs there. And you know what? I just may transition to that game. Now, talking about the even Steven stuff. This is the Buffalo team that I talked about in the summer. This is the Buffalo team that I said that could get to the Super Bowl instead of this Cleveland Brown team, who's got more talent on paper, but it comes down to the nucleus, which is the quarterback, protecting the quarterback, but the quarterback position. And 35-0 in. Now you say, well, they not what? Well, yeah, they did, but the quarterback don't play defense. You know, they don't play defense. Josh Allen, pretty mediocre game, but you know what? 82 yards rushing and a touchdown out of Devin Singletary. They are throwing the ball to Singletary. They're getting a running game, this Buffalo team. They're getting a pass rush that I thought they could get. On the flip side, you know, Miami knows, Chris Greer knows deep down, Tua's got his rib injury again. He's going to be iffy coming in. He was supposed to have some kind of ankle injury last year. I think that was the reason why they put him out of the Denver game. We don't know if it was lack of player injury. He came into Miami with a hip injury. He was getting over another ankle injury that caused the hip injury in the Alabama season. And they've probably made a mistake. At this point, I'm pretty sure that they know they made a mistake with Tua. That Chris Greer and Brian Flores are saying, man, we've got this great defensive line. We got this good pass rush, all that good stuff, and we still didn't get, you know, this team has one of the worst offensive lines in the league. Offensive line's a big deal. It's a big deal. We saw it in the Giants this season. We saw it in Pittsburgh Sunday. They're like 31st coming into the season. And we're getting to see Tua, who's not the most mobile guy in the world, get knocked around like a rag doll. But with that 3 pick, instead of, and I understand the Deshaun Watson, let's put Deshaun Watson off to the side for a minute, okay? You had the 3 pick. You could have got Trey Lance. You could have kept Ron Fitzpatrick and let it be a count battle with everybody. And you could have traded, probably got a second-round pick after camp for Tua, or you could have traded him after the draft, or you could have just kept him on the roster because he was at a rookie wage scale anyways and had 3 quarterbacks. Some teams do have 3 quarterbacks. But they didn't decide to do any of that. They traded down, and they got another wide receiver. Wide receivers are just not that valuable. We saw that in the Giants game. They're valuable to a certain extent, but if you can't run your route properly without the quarterback throwing off of his back foot or throwing from the right side of the field to the center field, it means no never mind, like my dad would say. It doesn't matter. And the older I get, and the more I watch. And guys, I'm a big-time fantasy player now. I'm playing for the $1 million. I'm playing in these tournaments on Thursday nights now. I love receivers and running backs. But if you ain't getting that push up front, it's just not happening, man. They made a mistake. And, Pickle says something about Tua to Miami. All these Cam Newton to Miami. All these Cam Newton lovers. People still out there. It looks like maybe the Patriots knew what they were doing. Now, that'd be a good pickup there. Cam Newton, you can hit him with a baseball bat, and he'll just play through it. He'll just play through the pain. Now they got to go play at the Raiders. Your guess is good as mine as who's going to win that game. But I tell you, man. Okay. Rapid fire here. Okay, other good games. Other really good game. Now, the Tennessee Titans down 15 points at Seattle. 15-point deficit. I thought to myself, there's so many other good games, and I'm going to talk about them. Arizona and Minnesota come down to the last kick. Guys got to make a 33-yard field goal. Please, come on. You got to do that, man. You got to do that to win in this league. Dallas comes down to a 56-yard field goal. I'll talk about that one here in a minute with the Chargers. But Tennessee, 15 points down. This team has had 4 coaches since they became the air quote Tennessee Titans, since that name was official, and they had a stadium here in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm reporting from, where I'm doing the program from. And none of the fourth one would be Mike Vrabel. Jeff Fisher being the first one, the current coach, was the coach in 1999. Of all those 4 coaches over the past 20 plus years, of the other 3, if the Titans were on one of those West Coast games, say the Chargers or the Raiders, and they got down early, it was going to be a bloodbath. I watched another game. And then I didn't have Red Zone a lot of. I would just go watch a movie. I would do rounds at work. I'd work security because I knew it was going to be a blowout. Back in the Fisher days, the Raiders would be the and any other team out west. It was going to be horrendous. Hold on for a second, folks. Let me change out my. Okay. There we go. Now we're back. So that it would be, but they hung in there. They kept fighting, and they got the win. That's that 3-time Super Bowl winning head coach who's telling this team in life, not everything's going to be a rosy path, perfect. It's going to be rocky. You've got to work hard. You've got to push yourself. And good things happen. They, the theme to the program. They kind of even themselves out. Now, I heard during the week leading up to that game that normally not a very vocal guy, Derrick Henry, was vocal like nobody's business in that locker room leading up to this game. I've heard that Mike Vrabel even called out Julio Jones's toughness during the week. Of course, he had over 100 yards, 8 catches, had a touchdown that was called back that should have been a touchdown. And Derrick Henry got better as the game went along. Over 130 of his 182 yards was ran in the second half. He had 55 yards receiving. I guess they're watching SportsSkope. Okay? And I do mean what I said last week. If they played the way they did against Arizona with this talent, by the way, and their left tackle, Taylor Lewan, hurt himself in warm-ups, if that's what really happened. But it showed him straining himself warmed up on the video. I did see a video of that, so it's probably true. You don't even have your left tackle. You're down by 15 against Bobby Wagner, and that defense, it's not what it used to be, but it's still pretty good. It was Alada Stadium, the 12th man in Seattle. And Vince Lombardi said this, and Jimmy Johnson took it, repeated it over and over and over. The former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Miami Hurricanes, he told both teams this. He said, fatigue will make cowards of us all. Fatigue, tired, will make cowards of us all. Other words, be in shape. Be more prepared than your opposition. We saw that Sunday with this offensive line and Derrick Henry, and people going on and on about this taunting business going on in the NFL. Well, in the first half, your Bobby Wagners, your Jamal Adams of the world, safety there, linebacker safety, they were taunting Tennessee after every tackle. You could see it, and none of that got called. But I noticed in the third and the fourth quarter, that stopped. Because those 1 and 2 yard losses were 7, 10, 15, 18-yard gains. And when he scored, nobody even touched him because they didn't want to tackle him. Have you seen some of the workouts that this guy does with the log chain around his neck, doing those elevated, insane push-ups? He is a beast of a worker, and that's contagious. Fatigue will make cowards of us all. He wasn't fatigued. Between his leadership and Mike Vrabel, and I'm not sure, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, he showed them 3 rings, and he says, none of this was easy. He played on those teams with Teddy Bruschi, Laura Malloy, Willie McGinnis, where Brady was just basically Charlie checkdown and screen pass guy and over the middle guy. By the way, I read that he's going to have better stats in his 40s than he did in his 20s. But that's a different story. That was a huge win. That was one of the biggest wins of his coaching career in the regular season, I think. As far as, this team gets humiliated, they're beat down, no left tackle. They could have very easily had an excuse for getting beat by Seattle. You lose your left tackle in warm-ups. You're down early 15. The crowd's going crazy, but they dig deep. They dug deep within themselves. They have resilience, and that's why I think they're going to win this division. Now they gotta play the 0-2 Saints or Colts this week, and they can't have the Steelers type of mindset that says, we got this win. We know that Carson Wentz is is maybe not play, and you got your third string quarterback in there. You're back, Jacob Eason, your backup quarterback in there. They can't have that kind of attitude, which I don't think they will, but you never know. But that was a very impressive win. Fatigue will make cowards of us all. Now, I mentioned earlier about the Arizona team. Yeah, they've never lost by 15. They've never lost an opening day game, I want to say, since Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson been together. I know that for a fact. It may be since Pete Carroll's been there. They've never lost an opening game. But they never fought a fighter like this. And quite frankly, before I move on from that, at the end of that game, Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, a lot of those players shook hands and hugged Mike Vrabel. They hugged the Titans. That's out of respect. That's going up and taking it. Dad used to tell me, ain't nobody going to give you nothing in this world. You got to go out and take it. They're not going to give you the victory. You got to take it from them. And they took it from Seattle, even with all those bad calls. I said earlier, right now, FanDuel still got MVP odds that you can bet on. So I put $5 on Kyler Murray. Minnesota should have won that game, but they are the most explosive team out there. Rondale Moore looks like rookie of the year offensively. Speedster out of Purdue. And I'll say this. This team would be a Super Bowl, and they still may very well be. But if they had, you take a guy like a Bill Belichick coach this team, even a guy like a Vic Fangio, for say. They seem to be doing pretty well. This team, that I think they could win the way, and they very well may do it anyways. But so they knock out, they do catch a break at the end. They knock out Minnesota. Minnesota missed 33-yard field goal. They can't do that. But what concerns me about them, while I think they probably will fall short, they still had more. Think about this for a second. Last week, they blow out Tennessee in Nashville in great fashion. Kyler Murray looks spectacular. They can beat you with Christian Kirk down the field, Rondale Moore, the rookie now, A.J. Green's a fourth option, and, of course, DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best receivers in all of the NFL. Chase Edmonds is perfect for that offense at running back. I've talked about A.J. Simmons on defense, Buda Baker, Chandler Jones, T.J. Watt. A lot of playmakers on both sides of the ball. All that being said, so they dominate Tennessee in week one, still had more penalties than Tennessee. They win a close game at home. Minnesota lose field goal. They had more penalties than Minnesota did. And that's ultimately when they start getting in divisional play, Pickles, with Seattle, this healthy 49er team. If you keep Garoppolo upright and Joey Bosa, those guys, that defensive line, I'll take Kyle Shanahan over Cliff Kingsbury any day of the week. And, of course, the team that looks really good today, the Rams, the fully healthy Ram team. But it's their division, and it's the schedule. But we'll see. They play Jacksonville this week. They could lay an egg against Jacksonville. I doubt it, but we shall see. The Colts, I predicted they had a rough schedule, and they lost. Now, on top of everything else that's going on with the Colts, they're also going to be on Hard Knocks. That's going to air throughout the season. Big surprise there. And it's going to be on HBO on November 17th. Like I mentioned the other day, they're going to be competing with All or Nothing, the Amazon series, which I believe is back on this year. So they're going to be with the team the whole season. Good luck navigating through a new offense, new quarterback, new team, and you're down in the division and you're off to a very rough start. Getting through that. But going back to Minnesota, I picked them to win the North. I know that Green Bay, every time Green Bay, you beat Detroit at home, and then you got outgained by Detroit. Minnesota has a must-win this week. If they lose to Seattle at home, which I don't think they will, but you got Russell Wilson, got a Hall of Famer there. They're also coming off of a loss, overtime loss to the to Tennessee, which is a rough game. Minnesota comes off, I think it was late game, last minute field goal loss, and they're 0-2. But this is their home opener in Minnesota. Got to check the injury report, but I think Minnesota wins that. And next week, and we'll talk about this Thursday at halftime, the Packers go play, which I see to be a pretty healthy other than the running backs, but that's not that valuable position. Not unless you're a guy like Derrick Henry. The 49ers will be hosting Green Bay. I said in the preseason, I think Green Bay was going to lose that game anyway. So they would both be technically 1-2, and Minnesota have a win, and they would be tied for first. We'll see how that plays out. If not, I mean, Zimmer's probably going to get canned. And again, nothing against Lamar Jackson. He's not worth $35, $40 million a year. I don't care what you show to me in the regular season. Now, they're struggling, Minnesota's, because you're paying a mediocre quarterback to somewhat above average sometimes top quarterback money in Kirk Cousins. So I got a feeling that he's going to end up getting Mike Zimmer fired because they overpaid for him. You know? But Dalvin Cook, yeah, I mean, he's tough, man. And he's going to have to give it all he's got for them to win that game. Okay. Going back to Thursday. Now, everybody talking about Tyler Heinicke. Are they going to stay with the backup quarterback? Are they going to sign somebody else to watch the football team? And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, they took a shot at Stafford. They couldn't get him in the trade. They said that. That's what Ron Rivera said. And so they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a journeyman quarterback. I want to say he's played for 8 teams. 38-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick has the record for the most touchdowns thrown by the different teams in the league. Because he is a on and off, now you see him, now you don't, Ryan Fitzmagic quarterback. So my point to you folks is, to everybody, is that Ron Rivera, that coaching staff, that management team, they saw what Heinicke was doing in camp, and they put that with that one playoff game that he played against Tampa. And they gave this guy a 2-year extension. This guy was an XFL guy, I want to say, or AAL for whatever. He played in one of those minor league systems, one of those semi-pro systems. And the idea, to my opinion, was to bring Heinicke in because they knew Fitzpatrick was going to fall apart at some point anyways. And like I said the other day, he didn't last 4 quarters. I had him about 4 games. And you seen that other than that one throw, he had a good game. Somebody said this, I think it was Colin Coward, but he might have got it from somebody else. He had more pass attempts than Daniel Jones did. That tells you how much they really trust Jones. But Jones had a clean pocket in some of those possessions, and nothing happened. So the idea was to keep him in there anyways. If you can't get a established Pro Bowl level guy like a Stafford, this guy's good enough. Okay? And they're speaking of Daniel Jones, Tony O'Galladay, another team, spent all this money in draft capital on wide receiver. If you can't get the guy the ball, what sense is it to give this wide receiver all this money? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting a different result. Giant fans. There's some video that came out last Thursday night of Antonio Galloway hollering to the top of his lungs and looking, aiming at, I think it was Jason Garrett, but it was mainly aimed at Daniel Jones. And before that possession, I watched it in real time. He caught the ball. Now, maybe they didn't run a deeper route. I get it. But I'm thinking, okay, so you signed this guy to all this money, and he's sitting here dogging your quarterback out where everybody can see it on TV, on the sidelines. Then you turn around and draft Kadarius Toney, who a guy had in one of those fantasy leagues, those one-night fantasy leagues, and I think he got one catch for -3 yards in the first round. And you've already had Slayton and one of your best route runner on the team, I think, Sterling Shepard, and then you sign over-the-hill tight end and Kyle Rudolph with Evan Ingram, who's already hurt. So, and then you've got this running back who gets 10 yards, Saquon Barkley. You have the 32nd ranked offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus, coming in. Why didn't you address, and I said this about other teams in the league too, why didn't you go after Orlando Brown? Why didn't you try to outbid people for some of these free agent offensive linemen? That's all I'm saying. And watching that, Pickles, watching Kenny Galladay go off on Daniel Jones, who's probably not going to have a job anyways next year, reminded me of other loudmouth wide receivers coming at quarterbacks. Stephon Diggs hollering at Kirk Cousins when they're leading a playoff game decisively on the road at the Saints, and he's still arguing about not getting the ball. You're winning the game. I could see if you're down by 3 scores and he says, why didn't you give me the ball? Yeah. Of course, they traded them next year, got Justin Jefferson. Now Diggs is over there with Buffalo. And of course, only reason that works because you've got, at this point, Josh Allen on a rookie contract. And then I think about Terrell Owens hollering at Donovan McNabb. McNabb goes through all these hoops. He makes all these public appearances, not public. He comes out publicly and says, I want to get Terrell Owens here. So Terrell Owens, because he wanted to get another contract extension when he just signed one, he's mad because his teammates isn't checking his back in this salary cap driven league for him to get another extension and putting that much more on the cap. Well, what does that lead to? Nothing. I mean, it leads to nothing. Again, they saw Miami the other day. They've already got their quarterback out. That 29th ranked offensive line. They signed Fuller, and he's out for personal reasons. Will Fuller was out for personal reasons. He's a diva. And then they drafted Jalen Waddle with the 6th pick overall to go with Devontae Parker, who you already had. You had Gesicki at tight end. So you've already got overinflux of wide receivers, but then your quarterback's already out because he got banged up. He can't get you already know the guy can't run that he's not that athletic. And then on top of that, you sign Jacoby Brissett, a guy that was once known as the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. So as much as I like Chris Greer and Brian Flores, they've dropped the ball lately. So my point to all you GMs out there and football fans, that's why I gave Philadelphia a fighting chance. At least they got offensive linemen. Get the boring offensive linemen first. You will always have a chance. You can get wide receivers in the second, third, fourth round, fifth round. I think Diggs was like a fifth round pick. A.J. Brown, second round pick. Rondale Moore looks to be rookie of the year. He's like a second or third round pick. The explosive guy who's now playing for the Arizona Cardinals. But Dallas and LA Clippers, Chargers. Now, Tony Pollard runs 109 yards, touchdown, outdid Zeke Elliott, by the way. That was the way to do it. You get the rushing yards, you get the dump down passes, and you just have to improve on defense. They moved over Micah Parsons to be an edge rusher in that game. Dallas did. And it all worked out. They won the game, and I still feel good about putting them as the winning the NFC East. On the flip side, with these young coaches, again with the young coaches, the youth movement, they got the defensive coordinator, formerly of a 38-year-old coach out of the Rams, as the head coach. And the Chargers had 12 penalties, Pickles, for 99 yards in that game. And one of those penalties called back a touchdown by Justin Herbert. Coaching is a big deal in this league. Coaching is something we take for granted. When you see a team like a New England team that they just don't have the explosiveness of these other teams. But man, it's hard to beat them because they will not beat themselves. Mac Jones has got one touchdown. One. And they should be 2-0. They dominated the Jets. Jet fans, you're just going to have to be patient with Zach Wilson. I said that in the preseason. I said this guy played one full year in college. They're going to make him the starter as a 20-year-old in the biggest market in America. With new coaching staff, young offensive line, right tackle got hurt before the game. Yes, he had 3 interceptions and 2 sacks. I think he's got 6 for the year. But going back to this Charger team, it is what it is. Coaching's a big deal. Penalties is coaching. Holding, jumping off sides, constantly lining up off sides. That's even worse. But I'll tell you, man, it's a good win if you're a Cowboy fan. Again, you don't to win the East, the NFC East. I said the Cowboys don't have to be a top 5. They don't even have to be a top 10. If they can be 12-14 instead of 27th to 32nd, where they're not in a shootout every single week, and a lot of times a good defense is a good offense. Because you use the time of possession a little bit. Tony Pollard, who's outpaced this past week anyways, outperformed Ezekiel Elliott, the guy that Jared Jones suckered up and paid a fortune to. And I told you on this program during the last time, it was after one of the hard when he ran away to 2 years ago to Mexico to hold out on a contract. I said, trade him. You will regret this. That was 2 years ago. And now Tony Pollard, you're not paying anything to. 109 yards, touchdown. And And like I said, outdid Zeke. He even got a few less carries, but not that many less carries than Ezekiel Elliott. Well, guys, that's all I have for tonight. I will be back on Thursday. We'll talk about predictions. Oh, well, one more thing. Ben Simmons. You know, if I'm Daryl Morey let me change out my stuff real quick. Hold on. Ben Simmons, Philadelphia, 76ers. Didn't think I was going to be able to get to this story, but it just popped in my head. He's claiming that he's not going to training camp. He wants out of Philadelphia. Now, if I'm Daryl Morey, for one thing, people are showing all these memes on Twitter about Joel Embiid celebrating. I get it. You know, you're asking for the moon, and you're going to get a star. Might not be the star you want, but a guy that can't hit free throws, he's a diva. He wants to be pampered, and he hasn't done anything lately to even be pampered. I said from the get-go, trade him to Portland. I know that, you know, I forgot the guy's name now because I don't have it in me. The player to trade him for is not exact value. It's not the exact value. But I'll say this. They need defense, and you can use the offense for C.J. McCollum. C.J. McCollum's what I think about. So, and just get a draft pick, get some other players. You know, again, Portland would be great, but put him up there. You need a team that has good offense that lacks defense. But Golden State, I mean, that might put them over the top. Put him with, because you're going to have Klay Thompson, you have Steph Curry back, Draymond. They could trade their Wiseman. That's already been discussed. Morey didn't want it. Daryl Morey, you're coming up with these impossible situations. Same thing that the general manager for Houston, going back to football purposes, it's not going to happen. You're eventually going to have to take what they give you when it comes to Deshaun Watson, and he's already said that he's going to trade Watson. Watson will be inactive again this week, Thursday Night Football. So both of these players, you're going to have to just get rid of them. You don't want to be here, that's fine. We'll get rid of you then. Take what you can get. That's the problem when you give these guaranteed contracts to these young kids and all that entitlement. New Orleans will be a good fit. Somebody mentioned Memphis. Memphis needs offense. I get it. But Memphis could be one of the best defensive, efficient teams in the league with Ben Simmons. You know, I think that would be interesting. He's going to mess around and get traded to a team like Orlando if he don't watch it. To a Chicago Bulls, somebody like that. Whoever gives me the best offer. When you tell me something like that, I'm going to trade you to whoever gives me the best offer. You know, of course, he could say, I'm not going to show up. Well, don't show up then. We won't pay you. But anyways, that's my thoughts on that. Pull the trigger. Don't be scared. And again, guys, I will be back on here Thursday around halftime. We'll talk about the program. If you guys like the show, please share the show. 7:30 a.m. Central Time. I go on the Mac and Jack this week at Sports Show. Sometimes they have Jim Jeffcoat on there, Super Bowl champ from the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm getting in the right circles to become to get the kind of job that I deserve at this point in my career. And I want to appreciate all your help and support for that. If you want to contribute to the show, go to the Zelle app. My to contribute to this show, the word sports, the word SKOPE at gmail.com. You can make that kind of contribution. It'll be greatly appreciated. Until then, I will see you around 9 p.m. Central Time, probably about a minute or two before halftime, but when the Carolina Panthers play the Houston Texans on Thursday night. So have a good one, everybody. I'll see you Thursday here on SportsSkope. Oh, yeah, and I do want to say, yeah, J.J. Redick is retired. Pickle says that. Maybe he goes into coaching, 37 years old. Maybe he could try out for the Big Three League. Still got some left in the tank. I just think he got tired of the crap with the NBA and just didn't get put with the right team. He was 37. I thought he was younger than that. Time flies. Okay. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you Thursday here on SportsSkope.